Hello everyone, just wanted to start off by saying sorry if my audio sounds a little weird. I'm currently on the road traveling for work, so I don't have exactly the best recording environment at the time. You can probably hear the room in the background. Sorry for that. But, let's get down to business. First of all, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's story, and I have a few announcements regarding the channel, but first I have to give a huge thank you to Chillers and Thrillers and Ashley Hilt for lending me their wonderful voices in tonight's story. Chillers and Thrillers has become a good friend of mine and has been featured previously on my channel as Diane from the story The Fifth Floor by Ryan Peacock. She has her own channel and podcast where she narrates and tells true scary stories with no skepticism, no comedy, no true crime, gore, or graphic imagery. Only fun, spooky stories and encounters with the paranormal that are fun for the whole family. Definitely check her out. And big thank you to Ashley Hilt, who has been featured as Wendy from the story I Thought You Were Dead by Brandon Wills. And she is a fellow enthusiast of cryptids and creepy things and all things weird. She also has her own podcast. On Wednesdays We Talk Weird, where she hosts special guests and they cover everything from Mothman to aliens. I'll leave a link to their channels and podcasts in the description below. Do yourself a big favor and check out their content. They're both very talented and love what they do, so I know you guys will love them too. Now on to the updates about the channel. The stories that I have been featuring from the author Brandon Wills, unfortunately, will be ending due to publishing rights. Brandon had given me his permission to narrate his anthology. The Ouija board said it was hungry, but has since republished his book with a different publisher that now owns all the rights to the audio versions of his stories as well. And unfortunately, that means I won't be posting any more of his stories from that anthology. However, he did say that if the publisher saw enough of a demand for an audiobook, then I might be able to continue narrating and sharing his stories with all of you. Now we just need to drum up the demand. So if you guys have enjoyed my narrations and production of his stories and would like them to continue, go buy his book and leave a review requesting an audiobook version so the publishers can see it and we can make this thing happen. I'll leave a link in the description where you can purchase his book and write a review. Now with all that out of the way, let's get to the story. Thanks for tuning in.
Growing up without a father wasn't easy. Mom always had trouble keeping men around. She hopped from one to another regularly because few men can stand raising someone else's kid. Because of that, I taught myself to not get too attached. So, she spent most of my childhood working herself to death while I barely saw her. I almost never went to social functions, and anything extracurricular like Girl Scouts, sports, or dances were out of the question until I was old enough to ride the bus or drive. I remember being very jealous of the other girls who brought their dads to after-school activities and seeing the dads playing with their daughters in public. And I will admit, I felt a twinge of anger whenever I saw it. There were others that had the same problem, but for some reason, I was the favorite target for the bullies. Some girls could be real bitches about it. They would giggle and offer their unwanted perspectives on the subject. Some of them grew up without a father too, but they still liked to make the wound deeper. Here's a recap of one particular incident.
Look at Amy. She's so ugly that her dad left when he saw her.
Oh, please. He left before she was even born because he knew what a fugly kid she would be.
Hey, Amy, have you even met your dad? I doubt he'd want anything.
That was the last thing she said before my fist met her lips and loosened several of her fucking skanky teeth. It was the most talked about thing in school for about the next week or so. I learned that fighting back only managed to stifle the taunting for a brief period. Bullies seek you out to make themselves feel better by using you as a punching bag for their insecurities. Once the bullies learned that they could get a reaction from you, everyone had to take their shot. I spent most of my teens in practical isolation. I had few friends that I could trust. My best friend, Marci, was the closest person in my life. For years, I trusted her with my deepest thoughts and buried emotions that I hid from everyone else in the world. My mother was too busy working and trying to find a reliable life partner to make time to focus on me and my problems. Eventually, Marci and I would admit our very real love for each other and became very close partners. It was Marci that I confided in when I received a strange message on Facebook one afternoon.
Hello, Amy. You may not know who I am or even that I exist, but we share the same father. I've never met him myself, and as far as I can tell, you haven't either. I'm sorry that this seems out of nowhere, but I've had to deal with therapists my entire life, and I just need to talk to someone who can relate to my abandonment issues. If you choose not to respond, then I'll respect that. But I would love to talk to my sister.
The guy's name was Chase. My mom had told me that my sperm donor had other children with other women before him, and probably after him as well, but I never had intentions of ever finding them or even trying to. As far as I was concerned, the man never existed and never would. I hesitated for a few days before I responded. I checked out his Facebook profile first. We had some similar tastes in music and TV show, which I found odd, and that terrified me a little. Another thing that I found odd was how much we looked alike. I was my mother's only child, so the idea of having at least one brother out there who also resembled me quite a bit was very strange. Marci suggested that I should respond with something harsh, just in case he was sent by my sperm donor of a father to try and coax me into talking to him. My response was this: "Sorry for taking so long to reply back. I never had anyone from this side of the family contact me, so this is a little bit weird. I've never met the man, as you suspected, so the idea of suddenly having siblings was a bit of a shock. My mother never had any other children, and it took a while before the realization sank in. All that I can say is that man is scum. He left before I was even born. I'd be happier if you would have told me he was dead, to be frank. Where was he when I was sick? Or when we were kicked out of our apartment because my mom couldn't get enough hours at the restaurant? If you're trying to get me to contact him, please just don't bother." It took him a few days to get back to me as well. He read it not even an hour after I sent it. After a day, I concluded he would never reply and that would simply be the end of it. Then, he replied with this:
Hi again, little sister. Sorry, long night at work. Was a bit busy. I read your message and totally forgot to reply. Anyway, I'd like to have lunch with you one day, or preferably dinner, since I'm used to an overnight schedule. I'm sure you've seen my Facebook profile and know where I live, so just let me know when and where if you're up to it.
My creepydar went off, all sirens blazing. Little sister, he called me? He didn't fucking know me. He never fucking met me. What's up with this dude? What was he aiming for? He had the same last name as my father, and he did look like me. But what was his real goal? For all I knew, he could have been the next Jeffrey Dahmer. Marci practically begged me not to meet him, but I told her that I wanted to. If he was going to be weird about it, I'd tell him off, make a scene, and block his weird ass. Easy as that. Or so I hoped. I wanted to make it somewhere public, where plenty of people and security cameras would be. I told them I wanted to meet at the Chinese restaurant inside the local mall. The lobby has lots of cameras pointed towards the seating area, so it seemed safe enough. Calm down, Marci. You can come with me if it'll make you feel better, I told her as we watched a show on Netflix that I wasn't paying attention to.
Yeah, it would. I'll make it not obvious. Like, I'll come up the escalator while you two are eating and be like, "Oh, Amy, didn't expect you here." Or I can get a little table nearby. I just want to make sure you're safe, babe.
I laughed. Yeah, sure. Whatever floats your boat, lady. I met him the following Saturday, a few minutes past 6 p.m. 3 hours before the mall closed. He was taller than I expected and a little on the chubby side. He wore a faded shirt of a metal band that I knew of and a few easily recognizable tattoos on his arm. In any other circumstance, I'd classify this guy as a douche and do my best to not speak to him. He saw me and started waving his arm in the air like a doofus.
Amy, it's good to meet you finally,
he said with arms open for a hug. Hi, Chase, I replied, with no hug.
You're shorter than I imagined. Is your mom short too?
Well, he really pissed me off. Don't talk about my mom.
Chill, I was just kidding. Jeez, you're about as warm as a block of ice.
This was when I caught him leering at me, just for a second or two. But it was definitely a creepy way of checking me out. That's me. Thanks for the astute observation, pal, said as I pulled up a chair. Now, tell me why I'm here. Really, what do you want?
I just want to get to know my sister.
Cut it. I'm not your sister. We just happen to have the same guy as a father. He was never around either of us. We have never known each other, never met. I'm 29 now. What makes you think I want to know anything about his pathetic life?
Well, I see that his absence has made you a tough person. But I'm not like him. I've never been married because I can't trust anyone. No children either, because I'm afraid of becoming like him. I drank my youth away, and here I am, 35, and I still work at a bullshit job. So can you be nice before I just leave?
I stood up, almost knocking the chair over. No, me first. I turned and left, almost running face first into Marci, who had just come off the escalator to the food court. She mumbled something as I grabbed her by the sleeve and pulled her along with me.
That bad?
She asked as we headed back down the escalator. That dude gave off hardcore creeper vibes. I'm not sticking around.
Why?
I caught him staring at my tits. What brother does that to a sister?
Ew, yeah, good point.
I wanted to leave, but Marci talked me into walking around the mall for a while to cool my temper off. We walked from store to store, mostly browsing, but not buying. She was making fun of people from a distance, trying to make me laugh. My mind had finally moved past the weird man who claimed to be my brother. Marci and I walked towards the parking garage when I told her that I had to pee and that I would be out in a few minutes. I was almost in the women's bathroom near the entrance of the mall when I felt a sharp blow to the back of my head. I woke up some time later in a haze of blurry pain. I remember my head lolling towards the floor, the haze of unconsciousness slowly fading away. I was in an unfinished basement. The walls were all bare cement blocks. The skeleton of a wooden frame in the ceiling. The floor was bare dirt. A few feet in front of me, a large, shoddily built table. On the table lay multiple tools. Most I recognized as tools to butcher meat. The basement was really dark, except for a little moonlight shining in through the tiny windows near the ceiling. I fidgeted, but could not move the binds around my wrists and ankles.
Well, hello, sister. I'm glad you're awake. I was beginning to worry about you.
I heard the voice of my brother, but I could only see the outline of him. Why did you do this? What do you want?
What do I want? That's a funny question. I mean, isn't it obvious?
He answered stiffly, a hearty laugh. He put his hand on one of the tools that were on the table. It was a meat cleaver. But I noticed something odd. His hands weren't the same. They were clawed, and the skin was snake-like.
Relax, sister. It'll all be over soon. I promise.
He took a few steps forward a little, and I could see his face. Protruding from his mouth was his thick, forked tongue from between rows of pointed, barbed teeth. He stepped forward into the light a little more, and I noticed his bulbous black eyes staring at me. His skin had turned thin and scaly, with various shades of green. Panic set in when my brain refused to accept that this was possible. All my animal instincts kicked in to get the fuck out of there. I wiggled with all the strength I could muster, but the ropes were tightly wound. I groaned in pain but kept trying.
Good luck, little sister. You won't break yourself free. My mother taught me well.
He laughed at his own reveal.
You said you didn't want to know about Father, right? Well, I suppose it's time that you know what really happened to him. Why do you think he never came back, Amy? Because he made love to my mother, who in turn devoured him afterwards.
He was laughing in an awful, raspy way that barely sounded human. It made my skin crawl to the core. He stepped forward into the light. His green skin flexed under his worn metal band shirt as he lifted the cleaver. From behind him, a voice exclaimed,
Amy, are you down there?
I thought I recognized the voice, but my throbbing head made it impossible to analyze that. My brother's head shot around in the direction of the basement stairs. I heard footsteps rushing down the stairs with the shape of a person. A struggle ensued. I heard a woman grunting and swearing, and my brother growling inhuman sounds. When suddenly, he exclaimed loudly as his body collapsed. From behind him appeared the other shape, who quickly jumped over his body and ran towards me. It was Marci.
Amy, oh my god, it took me forever to find you.
How did you?
You left your GPS on your phone, thank God. I had to use an app to find you. His neighbors probably think I'm the biggest creep ever. But it only said you were in a 50-foot radius of this place. I peeped down through one of those windows up there and saw you.
She explained as she cut through ropes with a knife off the table.
He left the back door open, so I went in. I had to save you, babe.
She was breathing heavy and trying to catch her breath.
Is that the creep from the mall?
Believe it or not, but it is, I said as she helped me off the table he tied me to. As soon as I stepped down, I felt a horrific pain in my left leg. Oh my God, something hurts, Marci. Oh God, my left leg. She stopped and helped me sit up on the table. I looked down and saw my brother laying on the ground, a growing pool of black blood circling his body. He wasn't about to get up.
Oh my God, Amy, he tried to eat your leg.
I looked down and saw a massive chunk of my thigh was gone. The white of the bone reflecting in the dim moonlight. I suppose it's not too surprising that I fainted then. Marci said she carried, partially dragged me to her car, floored it to the hospital. She told the staff that I had texted her and she found me this way. It was a few days before I came out of it. They said they tested me for a variety of diseases. All came back negative, so that's a major plus. It has been a little over a week, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. I think that I can make peace with my father now. All the sadness and heartache I felt as a kid now just seems null and void. In places of these emotions, I feel appreciation for what I did have, for all my mother did for us, instead of focusing on what I didn't have. I also feel sad for my father. Who knows what it must have been like to be eaten by one of those creatures. While I was in the hospital, I dreamed about my brother. Dreamed about his barbed teeth digging into my flesh, tearing and pulling chunks to feed his endless hunger for human meat. Each time it became more and more vivid. They continued even after we came back home. And 3 nights ago, the dreams changed. He was ripping apart Marci and invited me to join him. Eventually, I accepted. The next morning, I woke up on the floor, drenched in blood. It took some time for my brain to comprehend what it was. How it got there, I wasn't sure. I rushed into the shower a couple of rooms over me, taking the equivalent of at least 10 normal showers, but I never did feel clean. I made my way back to our bedroom and found Marci sleeping comfortably. I swear I don't remember doing it. I have zero memory of killing someone or something. Then, yesterday, I started having this insatiable craving, this powerful hunger for meat. I walked to the kitchen and ate an entire pound of raw hamburger, but that only curbed the craving. I remember looking down at my leg that night. The flesh had grown back along with green, reptile-like skin. By the next morning, it had spread across most of the lower half of my body. I contracted something from him, some disease that is slowly transforming me into the monster that he was. And so, yesterday evening, I finally did it. All that I can remember was hiding behind some bushes for a woman jogging by. I pulled her into the bushes and ripped out her throat with my teeth. The blood felt as good as I imagined, and I felt this beast inside of me awaken, craving more. So I continued eating and drinking in the red liquid of life as it poured into my mouth. Her body flopped around in my grasp, but I held on with strength I didn't know I had. She gurgled as she choked to death on her blood. That only intensified the satisfaction. That feeling, it was better than sex, better than any orgasm. Once I was full, I realized that if anyone came in, I'd be done for. I dragged her body to a house currently under construction, shoving the remains of her body through a basement window. I fell into the bushes beside the hospital and ran like hell into a nearby alleyway. I remember running down to a nearby river, ditching my clothes and bathing off as much of the blood and carnage as I could. And I ran the rest of the way home, completely naked. Thankfully, I didn't see anyone else. Here I am, at home now. I took another long, warm shower once I woke up and remembered what happened. And I slept the best sleep of my life. Before I finally ceased to exist as a normal human being, I wanted to put my story out there as a warning. Be very, very wary of disassociated family reaching out to you on the internet.